Welcome to Find Myself Free, the podcast. I'm Ellie Young, alcohol-free life coach, mom, and athlete. I'm dedicated to helping others change their relationship to alcohol by sharing my journey of transformation. Fascinated by my own capacity for change after decades of gray area drinking, I'm passionate about sharing what I've learned from neuroscience and positive psychology to help you break free from the drinking cycle and unlock your true potential. Hear my personal stories of triumph and struggle as I navigate raising two boys, finding myself after 40, building a business, and doing it all alcohol-free. From women's health and cycle syncing to fasting and biohacking, this podcast is your roadmap to a healthier, purpose-filled life that starts with changing your relationship to alcohol. It's time to embrace change, find balance, and create the life you were meant for. Welcome to Find Myself Free. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to introduce today's guest. Her name is Fera, and we met in my meditation studio. That's why I love this community so much. There is no shortage of just amazing women to meet. So let me tell you a little bit about Fera. So over the last 2 decades, Fera has developed an integrated practice through an eclecticism of modalities, where she offers practical tools through a transformative approach to healing. One-on-one sessions focus on unearthing and transforming the root of impactful issues as she facilitates a journey towards wholeness and well-being by addressing the fragment parts of self. Fera also facilitates ceremonies for transformation that align with the cycles of nature and celestial occurrences. In support of all the work she does, she also has an artisanal apothecary line of made-to-order products that she handcrafts, such as luxury candles, bath products, sprays, and more. She is primarily based on referrals, and until recently, where her website, is now up and running. You can find her at singingsparrow.com. Let me double check that. I'm sorry, singingsparrowcollective.com. I hope you enjoy today's show with Fera. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Find Myself Free. I am here with my new friend, Fera, today, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear all of the incredible things that she does. We met at Wellspring Studio, my favorite meditation studio, amongst other things. They offer a whole crazy world of healing opportunities there. But we met because we meditate together on Friday mornings. And why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Okay. So as you said, my name is Fera, and I refer to myself these days as a healing arts practitioner. I came to that labeling. This can be so challenging to articulate. So I came to that labeling through massage school. I went through massage school, and during massage school, I met a Native American medicine man, and that led to me doing 2 rounds of two mentorship programs with him. And so I tend not to refer to myself as a massage practitioner these days, just to not infer that you will be unclothed and that I'll be, applying specific soothing techniques to muscles. My one-on-one practice is very based in massage modalities. So craniosacral, a fair amount of myofascial release. I love that modality for getting to the root of where trauma can be stored in the body. So, yeah. And then a few years ago, or I guess 5 or 6 years ago, I started incorporating ceremonies. The community that I had built as one-on-one clients had started asking for more. So I started doing ceremonies around the new moon and full moons and other celestial occurrences. And then I started doing workshops. Again, people, especially women, really wanted more. And so I started building workshops to help facilitate. So I've gone from one-on-one to these bigger, or not bigger, but definitely more than one person at a time events. So I feel like healing arts practitioner can kind of encompass a bigger part of what I do.
Yeah, I know. So our friend Kelly, who runs the plant-guided meditation, referred to you as an alchemist, which I thought was so cool. It totally piqued my interest. And she also brought with her some of her goods that she makes. So on top of all these healing modalities, I would call it like an eclectic array. And honestly, you guys, we had tea together, and we could have talked for 4 hours straight. She is a wealth of information. And so, yeah, I don't say massage therapist sums it up, because it's so much more of the healing modalities that you offer. And you make products. So tell us a little bit about some of the products that you brought.
I make product. So a big part of my practice is working with clients around their language or their self-care routine or breaking certain habits. And so years ago, or for decades actually, I was giving away these self-care products, which rolled into this. I'm going to call it a small apothecary line. That's not to be diminutive. It's a luxury line of products with just the purest ingredients that I can find. A handful of products that help induce self care, either on a physical, energetic, emotional, or other level. So in some capacity, there's. I This is kind of funny, but how the product ties into what I do. Short of the long of that would sound like I make a body scrub. It's a sugar and salt body scrub.
Yeah.
But so it is the best of both worlds combined with other things to make this thing work. What I love about that is that it also is working with the lymphatic system. It's helping or the way that I coach clients through is to help them drain their lymphatic system, which is also contributing to the weight that they carry in a literal fashion. So we talk about the weight that women carry in a lot of different ways. But I just love that the products that I do are very intimately tied into the practice.
Yeah.
I love candles, so of course, candles is on that apothecary
Yeah.
line.
That is
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah, and honestly, that's how we got talking, was, the weight that women carry. I had asked a question at the end of our meditation, because it's the middle of summer. I haven't been able to stick with my meditation practice like I like to, and it's so interesting to me how, like, things like that just fall off the list in summertime when you're busy with your kids, they're out of school, and you don't get to stay with your normal routine. And it's always the self-care items, at least it is for me, that start to like fall off. Like, oh, that's the thing that has to go. And a lot of women, I know, they don't work out, or they don't take as good care of themselves because they're just busy. And instead of saying no to other things, we say no to ourselves. And we drop ourself off the list. And so that's how we got talking. So tell me the answer you gave me. She actually said to me after the class, she's like, I have an answer for you. You want to see? And that's how we got talking. I'm like, yes, tell me why
So,
most women drop this. Yeah.
a fraction of the answer, right? Because it can be so many variables. So more often than not, like we're choosing to drop self-care. Culturally, we're not supported to tend to self. And even when you look at other like subcultures within that, so like, there's religions that say put others first, and there's other groups and organizations, there's other ways of being, there's other cultures that will allow us to be convinced that we have to become selfless. Well, the suffix of less is without. So I'm working from a perspective to be selfish, and ish being full of the essence of. So to fill yourself up so that your cup runneth over. So we get caught in these culturally supported ways of cutting out these primary things that take care of us. And we
Mhm.
lose. So part of what we talked about is losing sight of, for all the reasons that we could knock down shamefully ourselves and our self-care, we we noise, I got distracted.
Sure.
we 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 feel like to fill our own self is to be selfish, and that is a bad thing.
Right.
But really, we should be full of the essence that is self. And the benefit of that is like what we were talking about, is being the model for our kids and our community, other women, to elevate. The Tulalip tribe has a word in Washington, where I'm from, in Seattle. They have a word, osium, elevate.
Mhm.
In Lashutsi, elevate, elevate. So we would ideally be in a state where we are constantly elevating each other, and especially as women,
Right.
being so low on the totem pole from a perspective. So Yeah, to not take out. I kind of went off chart. There's so many. I have so many
Yeah.
bubbles up in my head right now.
No, that's okay.
I really, I would love to say the solution that I guess is what I skipped to, as opposed to saying why or how we get that way. I kind of jumped to the solution, which is like to actually do that and to model that for our women, model that for our children, model that for anybody in our community, and give them the hope that
Right. Well, and I love you when we were talking last time, like you kept picking out words and the language I was using to describe things. And it's so interesting how the language shapes our perspective and our experience. And so I kept saying, I need to carve out time to take better care of myself in the summer. And you said something that was so profound to me. You were like, look at that. By you saying carve and even telling your kids that mom is gonna take this time for yourself, you're modeling that you don't deserve it, that you have to take it in this way instead of it being abundant and instead of it being there for you already, and that it's always there. And
that you
it's
have to work for it, and you should
right.
have to work for your breath, for your life, for your happy, for your sanity, for your anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Our language. So to back it up, language, I've been studying language since I was in my late teens. That spawned because I was raised in a Catholic religion and I needed to reconcile some language that just had so much dissonance. I couldn't sit with that. I couldn't sit well with that. And then that ran me into studying cultural behavior. And then by my mid-20s, I was studying um, religious history and behavior, and then cultural and psychology as well. I was reading psych books from the 40s and 60s and 70s.
Oh,
And yeah. So language is very much a part of the work that I do. So when I have conversations and I have permission to speak freely, then
yeah.
it is really interesting how we arrive at the narrative that we tell ourselves, which, as we now understand very clearly, with it's no longer woo woo. It's very very founded in sciences and studies these days, that the story that we tell ourselves literally and directly impacts us. And then what does that look like for our community, or who we're attracting, who we're influencing, of course being our kids as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed this with a lot of my clients, women in particular, like we are so uncomfortable taking what we need and coming from this place of self-sacrifice all the time. It's almost like the self-sacrifice equals our worthiness as mothers. And in order to get through that dissatisfaction, we drink. We drink to cope. So there's this like numbing and dulling of that root dissatisfaction with the way things are. And
Yeah.
we're calling it self-care. We're calling the drinks with friends and the wine at night as this like treat and this reward. But at the end of the day, it's just compounding. One, that it further distances you from yourself and what you really, really want. And it doesn't, it, it just contributes more to your stress and anxiety.
It's absolutely, it's very much a state of service of self, and it's a very temporary fix. So when we're looking at the body from that perspective, organs are associated with specific emotions. And the liver is what holds our fire. It holds our anger, and it would hold our anger in every way, from completely denying, ignoring, pretending that it doesn't exist, to outright rage, fury, harm, and everything in between. So it's really holding how we move through anger in all the ways that we move through anger. So it's always interesting to me to listen to how people are applying
Yeah.
drink towards their anger, and even more so when you have conversations, especially like you're saying, with this specific demographic, this mom demographic who just wants the glass of wine at the end of a really rough day, or a cocktail or whatever it is, and kind of writes it off because I only drink 3 or 4 times a week, so I'm not, it's not a problem. um well, first of all, it's problematic in that that's the modeling, and there's nothing you're going to say that's more powerful to your kids than your modeling. That's always going to outweigh.
Right.
But it's interesting to hear these these women say, I'm not an angry woman. Well, no, you're not, because you're dousing that fire, but you're also fueling it simultaneously and paradoxically. You're just satiating that fiery need. And usually that is covering sadness.
Mhm.
Sadness for a lack of self, a lost self. We use talk about language. We talk about losing ourself in love. I'm lost in love. Why in the world would you ever want to relinquish who you are, the essence of you, in love? That has nothing to do with love. Love, that's completely on opposite ends of the spectrum. And then, we cover it up with drinking.
Yeah.
It's easy fix.
Yeah, I mean, they call it self-medicating for a reason, but I think that's one of the coolest things that happens when women learn to give up alcohol and learn that it's not this huge sacrifice that they think it is, that it's truly this return to self. And you get to know yourself again and you really get to like love yourself again. And it's such a it's such a homecoming, right? Because there's so much that has been numbed and dulled. Your intuition has just been completely like um just blindfolded and tied up where you can't hear from them, and all of a sudden that little voice starts speaking to you, and it's not always positive. Sometimes it's like, get the fuck out of this situation, sometimes it's like a job, a relationship, so whatever it is going on in your life. For me, it was my son with ADHD that I couldn't get my head around how to help him. It was during the pandemic, and I was drinking myself silly because I was internalizing all of his struggle and suffering and making it about me, that I was failing him. I'm a bad mother and he hates me and I don't know how to do this. Um and it wasn't until I got alcohol free that I could get clear and be like, this isn't about you. He needs help. Let's get him the help he needs. And it changed everything. All of the family dynamic, like it's incredible. And what can you talk to me more about, like ADHD and our connection?
So I'll say one interesting thing, or interesting from my perspective, about that. When we use substances, so um, we talked about, can I call myself a medicine woman? And I kind of explained, like, I don't want to find I don't, in Indian country I would be called a medicine woman, and I don't want to breach that appropriation. So with due respect, and my colleagues and mentors that are native, we can speak freely like this. Not being of native blood, I just, okay, don't. So but what we talk about in that world is that, those practitioners, we tend to, abstain from, substances. And the reasoning behind that is that it is said that your spirit becomes more like a shadow. So it shadows you, and being beings of both dark and light, we talk about how you might, when you raise the light, the dark raises as well. So you're constantly battling this dark and light. And this isn't a bad thing. This is a brilliant thing, because that dark is where you find the beams of light. Without that opposition, you don't know light. So this brilliant way that we're gifted, these brilliant gifts of dark and light, elevate and raise. But it is said, when you're using these substances, and your spirit is shadowing you, you don't have the opportunity to explore the light side of that dark. It's just shadow. It's so much shadow. So you're talking about burying yourself in these drinking is burying your shadow. So of course there would be clarity when you come out of that, right? Of course there would be massive clarity and the opportunity. I always use the word excavate. There would be the opportunity to excavate what's underneath that. What's underneath the drinking? What's under the feeling? What's under the emotion? What's under the thought?
Hmm.
Um, I know when I get these funny feelings about my kids, or I get these funny, I call them reels, the thing that doesn't stop.
Hmm.
When I have these funny reels that I know are completely untrue, I can go there and start excavating. So
Hmm.
with your kids, you're like, why is my kid driving me crazy? Might have been one of your reels, like, oh my gosh, he's driving me nuts. He's driving me nuts. He's driving me nuts. And then removing the alcohol, offering the clarity, offers you the opportunity to exactly what you said. What's underneath that? Okay, wait, this isn't him. This is me.
Right.
Why am I getting triggered? And
Right.
so often we end up holding the space, like they come from our body.
Yeah.
That's an attachment it's an ineffable attachment. So we have this thing that they're ours.
Yeah.
Um, Again, it's not my understanding that they are ours. They do come through us, and we are here to protect them and guide them, and, and nurture them and nourish them, and all of these wonderful things. But, We're here to rear them, not to own them or control them or to put our imprint our
Yeah.
desires in them. And sometimes with kids who are on these spectrums or have these special circumstances, they become like our special project.
Yeah.
So the way out is to, yeah, look in the mirror and discover, what is this mirroring to me? What is this brilliant child mirroring for me? Um, I can speak to that in one other way, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
My auntie had Down syndrome. She was my mom's eldest sibling out of 10. She was the eldest. And there really is something magnificent about the mirror of how different these differences create different mirrors in life than just somebody that you can empathize with ease. They really offer you this opportunity to love unbound, to listen, not hear, but listen,
Mhm.
and be present with people differently. And I'm sure you could say the same thing about your son that's on the spectrum. Like, he gives you this opportunity to see the world through a lens
Yeah.
that wouldn't be offered otherwise.
Yeah. Well, he's not on the spectrum. It's not autism. It's ADHD. But that's no, that's okay. But honestly, he is different enough that it feels different. I mean, I don't want people to casually, like, a lot of people think they understand what ADHD is and that it just means you're like hyperactive and impulsive and like all little boys have it or like everybody has a little touch of it. And I'm like, true, our worlds make us very distracted and impulsive, and it's, all the screens and whatnot. But like, he is unique. He is definitely, his brain is constantly searching for stimulation. He's like a dog with a squirrel. Like, it's like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. And you can see it when I can remove myself from it and observe him and without any judgment or anger or frustration, because I'm like, we're trying to get from point A to point B, and he's stopping at 100 different stops along the way. Like, it's really extreme sometimes, to the point where I'm just like, I want to film this so that I have evidence when I'm older and I can show him, like, this is what you were like, like it. And I'm so sorry, because I know I'm not doing everything right. I have educated myself up and down about this condition, and I truly do see it as a gift, but I don't think our school systems and our worlds are set up to handle these types of kids. And he does really well in some environments, and then other environments he just struggles, and his self-talk is really unhealthy because he's in trouble all the time. Most of his experience in the world is like, people are like, stop, don't, sit down, be quiet, and us as parents, like, majority of the words we say to him are corrections. And you don't even, I am aware of it and I still am doing it. Um, and so, I mean, like I said, though, I am grateful, because he has been a gift in the sense that there's a different way. It's forced me to grow in such a different way. It's forced my husband and I to change our relationship and the way we parent. It's impacting his little brother because he doesn't quite get the same type of attention, because my oldest requires so much attention. So it's always on our mind. And I know that he could benefit from um a healing. Like, I want to get him on your table, because I would love to hear what he would express to you, his experience in the world. And I know, like, we are so intricately tied that he feels like he's my lightning rod. Like, when he experiences things, I experiencing it like a woo, like, you know what I mean? Because I'm always trying to help him, and I'm always trying to make things better for him, even though I know he needs to, like, self advocate. I mean, that's what they always say, like, oh, let him fail, let your kid fail. And I'm like, he fails all the time, and then he won't learn. Like, everyone's like, "Oh, they only have to learn that once. He'll only forget his backpack once." And I'm like, "No, he'll forget it every single day, because his brain doesn't work like that. His brain can't take the shame of forgetting it and be like, internalize it to be like, I won't let that happen again. He'll do it every single day."
Yeah.
Um,
So let's talk about some
yeah,
solutions just around the variables that you put on the table, right?
yeah,
Okay, so I want to start with judgment. That was one of the first things that caught my ear. Judgment. So we're neurobiologically hardwired to judge. Like, let's not pretend that they're even in LA. You are not going to go to any surgeon and come out without your ego or your judge. Like, let's just call it what it is. So when we're able to do that, we talk about holistic. Well, parts of you that make you whole are going to be your judge and your ego. I'll stick to judge for this. Um, so instead of saying, I don't want to judge you, I'm not judging you, I won't judge you, say, I will judge you kindly. I will judge you softly. I won't judge you negatively. I won't judge you harshly. But to pretend that we're not judging, and you know what I do with a lot of my clients is I actually offer the reassignment of the language because judge currently is just so inflated right now. Everybody wants to be without their judge. But the judge is going to tell you, yes, move forward and date this person or don't, or walk down that dark alley or don't. The judge is going to be like, don't step out in a PCH when a bus is barreling down the road and they shouldn't be, or a car's hitting her. Like you want your judge. Your judge is your friend. There's places your judge doesn't belong or maybe muted, but in you want to be able to judge that your son is not doing well or your son is doing this, or you want to be able to judge these. You want to, so I relabel it assessing. Let's assess. How can we assess this? If that's a softer language for people, I encourage them to switch and use that. So as you're assessing your son's behavior and your son's needs, going in kindly or softly might look like um, the way that a boy's brain, the way that a man's brain is developed, they love to gamify, and women do too. And I'm gonna use it like masculine and feminine, but there's crossover, right? Because we both carry both. So you'll find girls that fall into this a little bit more masculine behaviors as well. So it doesn't have to be so black and white.
Mhm.
Um, but the way that a boy's brain is designed, they love game. They want to solve problems. They want to make everything right. So it's actually very masculine of like the behavior that you would be applying towards your son is from a more masculine point. I want to fix this problem with him. I want to fix these. The world for him is sitting in a more masculine. Sitting in the more feminine might be like, how can we set you up to succeed? And then boosting him. And I can talk more about that, but I want to move forward on this the gamifying the so men love to have a problem to solve. So if you give them a problem, and oftentimes they're very visual, so like for my kids are out of the nest at this point, so I'll refer to my husband more often than not, but uh, the if I really want something done, if I don't care if it gets done, then I'll tell him. If I really want it done, we have sticky notes that we put on our white cabinets. The sticky notes are really brilliant in color, so they're very obvious. If he comes in and he notices a sticky note, or I can point out there's a sticky note request, that will get done. But I do it by gamifying it for the man's brain. So I say, I want this task done. Can it please be done by 6 o'clock? Is that like, does your schedule allow? So there's a little bit of give. It's not so demanding.
Right.
But then he's figuring out in his day, like, okay, if I get this done, I'm going to get a good dinner, or I'm going to get a movie with my wife, or,
Yeah.
they want the carrot at the end of the road. So I'm curious, if you were to gamify some of your son's stuff, how would that help him show
Yeah.
up for things? And also that would be to elevate him. That would be to edify. Okay, I know how to work with this behavior now.
Yeah.
I might get in trouble at school, but I'm safe here because they know how to work with me.
Yeah, we've done lots of gamifying of things and rewards. He operates so much better with positive feedback than negative feedback, and that's always the game. You just have to constantly be upping the ante with him. He's like, that's not good enough anymore. Now you got. I mean, I've paid him. This is ridiculous. I used to pay him $5 every day that he would actually get out of the house on time. I mean, he couldn't do it, you guys. It's like ridiculous. Sometimes, and this is how extreme it is. He would go to the restroom to brush his teeth, and he'd be in there for a while, and I'd be like, "What are you doing?" And I'd come, and he had somehow found Scotch tape, and he'd have taped his whole face up, like big nose, and he's having the best time. Like he is laughing. I'm think it's funny too, but at the same time, I'm like, what are you doing? We're late for school now. Like that's the kind of stuff anytime he goes into a room, he's gone. You
So
can't.
is he aware of boundary of stealing time? Is he familiar with this concept? Does he understand
No.
if he shows up late for school? So he doesn't want to be shamed, right? But he might not be aware of that you can steal time and you can't give it back. And this is very different from I can steal a computer and return it, doesn't make it right. I can steal a rose out of somebody's yard, doesn't, but I cannot replace time. If I am committed to you, if there's a meeting at 9, if we're showing up for meditation at 9 o'clock and anybody comes in late, they cannot give us that time back. So I'm curious if he understands time, if he was to be introduced to time differently, And then obviously money isn't the motivator. So what is the motive? Is it going to iFly? I don't know. Do you have those down here? Like what is the motivator? Is it, the race car track? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, money is a big motivator. It just has to be more money now. And Candy, yeah, his e-bike, he's 13 now. So, but
good for him.
I've heard that ADHD, you take a third of their age off, which actually translates to he's more
That
like
definitely.
a 9-year-old. And because my 10-year-old has actually kind of passed him by maturity wise and like ability to like get things done. I always joke that like my 10-year-old, you could like leave home alone for like the weekend and he'd be fine. He could like cook for himself, put himself to bed, bathe himself. My 13-year-old, you can't trust with like an umbrella. Like you're not sure what's gonna happen. It's just in but he has if the guardrails of society weren't around to tell him he's doing things wrong, he is enjoying himself. He's the most joyful kid I know. And that's what's so interesting because I see myself coming down on him sometimes, trying to like get him to fit in things because I'm just like, you have to go along with this. And as much as I hate it, as much as I'm aware of it, like we medicate him for school because he can't operate in school. We tried taking him off his medicine and he got 9 detentions and a suspension. And the suspension, I think I told you, was he found a can of spray paint and spray painted his name and a penis on a school wall. And it's like, I know as his parent, like 100%, if he finds a can of spray paint, he will spray paint something. Like
Okay,
there's
so
no
that might
choice. Yeah.
be a greater currency than candy and e-bike. Like that might be a greater currency. Set him
Mhm.
up with some plywood in the backyard and let him go crazy. And then when he's done going crazy, he's got to white it out and do it, so he has another canvas to do it over and over and over. Or movement is really important to him.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
much.
So maybe again, hikes instead of, which cuts into the day. It's definitely different, but at least your younger son would be a part of that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to know that the treat or the reward is for the older one. He may figure it out, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not as blatantly like you're not going to get as much attention as this one because you don't need it. So
Right.
actually, do you guys do dates with him then? Like, does mom and dad do dates with him individually so that he can?
Yeah, yeah. Because of their sports schedule, that just kind of naturally happens. We have more one-on-one time with them, which is good because I do worry that my little one is watching him get in so much trouble all the time that he's self-imposing a lot of like perfectionism because he's like, I
Um,
don't want to be in trouble. Like I want to be the good kid. I want to be, and I have experience with this because I'm the middle child and my brother was a total delinquent. And so I became like the perfect child so that my parents wouldn't cry over me like they did my brother. Um,
there's the mirror that your younger son offers for you.
yeah.
There's the mirror. Yeah. So there's a brilliant book. I want to say I always have these books that I have these great books that are always out on loan somewhere. I have no idea where this one. I believe it's called um it just slipped out of my mind. It'll come back in a second. It talks about internal perfectionism and external perfectionism. And I think it's called Never Good Enough. It might be by Levy. It's a very old book. It's very dated, but the information is so simple and very powerful and direct. And it talks about the internal perfectionism and the external perfectionism. And it talks about ways to crawl out of that, if you will. But I I would offer you as a parent, I would offer you, if I may, your consideration.
Sure.
Um, there apologizing to our kids is something that we don't feel is necessary. We feel like it's admitting or it's putting ourselves under. We have these really weird concepts. I've heard some of the weirdest responses when I say, "Have you ever apologized to your child, to your son, to your daughter?" And it's almost like a surprise, like no, like oh no, I why would I apologize to?
Yeah.
Okay, but it is that apology that gives us the ability to model for them,
Yeah.
you are free.
Yeah.
You're not tethered to my like, and I oftentimes with my kids, the big thing would be They would come home from school and I would ask them, would they be willing to have tea with me on the couch? And they just got so like, oh, what is she going to tell us now? What are we in trouble for? What talk are we having? So I would
Yeah.
invite them for tea and tell them. It usually came out of my mouth in the way that I was observant finally of a deficiency of my own. And it would look like an apology to them. And it would work its way out organically by me just saying, I caught that I'm acting perfectionistic in this way, or whatever
Mhm.
it would look like. But I realize that I'm perfectionistic and I'm aware that you might be seeing that modeling and trying that outfit on for yourself. But I want you to know
Yeah.
you are perfect without that effort. You are perfect without getting A's. You're perfect without being like your brother. You're perfect
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with once they have done something good that I'm asking for more. I know that about myself and I know that's just like how I was raised. Like I definitely came from like an overachieving family type where it was like straight A's, I got a soccer scholarship, I got an academic scholarship and it was like go all the way in on everything and you be the best. And it was very celebrated in my family too. It was like the way they looked at other people. It was like, wow, did you see where they went to school? Do you see what they did with their sports career? And so it's what's crazy is I'm so aware of this, but it doesn't prevent me from playing it out. Like as I'm doing it, I'm like watching the words and the influence and my own. And it's like I'm trying to relive my own history. And yeah, it's really hard to separate yourself from it and to just let them be.
So this is why I love the somatic work, or sometimes I think I started with, I call myself a healing arts practitioner. And sometimes I say somatic practitioner. And this is why our body is recording everything. It's recording everything from before we arrived here, which is not long, but I won't go down that road, but we literally pass on our genes. So you're carrying all these narratives, all these stories from everything that's ever made you you. You're carrying your own story. You have your own spirit. Your spirit has its own agenda for this experience, whatever that looks like. And then you're trying to rear these kids. And here's another component. We do not lean into community. We are not good at leaning into community. There's a reason that there's that it takes a village. It takes a village because it takes a village. It
Yeah.
takes a village. Yes. So we just don't lean into that. We isolate, again, leading to the drinking stuff and the right. Okay. So um and the shame. I'm not going to tell my friend that my kid is doing this because that's just embarrassing. And then I'm going to tell 9 other friends when I'm drinking, and I'm just going to affirm it and stamp that time in my timeline. But to go back
Hmm.
to the somatic, this is why I love the somatic work. I love being able to work with this tape recorder, our body, and free up what it is that is anchoring that down. So you're like, I'm very cognizant that I do this behavior. The
Yeah.
behavior isn't the problem. The trauma that's underneath it
Yeah.
is still lingering somewhere in your body. And this is another thing we do. I'm carrying all this stuff that's no longer serving me. When something, I've been in my practice over 20 years, I'm telling you,
Hmm.
when something is done serving, it dissipates.
Yeah.
It's really instantaneous. It just doesn't happen anymore. It's kind of wild, almost unimaginable, very surreal. Um, but whatever it is that's actually underneath that. So where was the neglect, or where was the like going back in your personal excavation and looking at your kids and using what you're experiencing with their experience to excavate what's pinning down to
Yeah.
create this behavior.
So tell me more about that, like in somatic healing. So you're saying these traumas are stored in the bodies and they're not necessarily like big T traumas, right? They can just be these
Yeah.
little, and that we're unaware of whatever, how that's influencing us and the story that we're telling ourselves, the belief that it has kind of forged in our subconscious. And so how do you excavate? How do you get to the root of that? Because at the end of the day, like I get this a lot. Like I'm a coach, I'm not a therapist. And a lot of what people want to do is we talk about the past, but I'm more interested in like going forward with people. Like I'm pulling you to that future self. And we have to be informed by the past, but at the same time, we're not going to focus our time there. Um, and so I know that there's just a lot of stuff. Like I would say I had a great childhood, but I do know I grew up with a ton of pressure. And I'm curious how to unearth that in myself, where it's stored and how it would even be released and how does it work?
Right. Okay. So let me start with no child leaves the nest unscathed. It's just not our human plight. And like you said, there can be all kinds of variables about, big T and little t traumas. And this isn't to minimize or even to specifically address any of that. It just things happen. And it really isn't what happened, it's how we recorded it.
Mhm.
So one time I was locked in my parents' car. My dad drove. It was a small little, I used to call it a turtle car, small little car, my long legs. The seat was all the way back up against my knee. It was only a two-door car. Everybody forgot that I was there. Probably could have maneuvered my way out, but
Yeah.
instead I sat there pouting and recording.
Yeah.
Nobody even noticed I was out of the car. So this would fall under like a little T. And it's not even something that was done to me necessarily.
Yeah.
I really did a lot of this particular thing to my own self, but I needed to write that narrative. I needed to go through what it was like to be neglected, forgotten, left alone, all these other things. So, which was just a touch to other.
Right.
So, oftentimes in my work, I call them Ebenezer Scrooge chains. And you can follow these big, gigantic, lengthy, heavy, long chains all the way down to this one anchor. And alchemizing the anchor is what alleviates everything on the chain. So, and the question was, how do I do that in my practice?
Yeah.
So I do that sometimes through listening to the narrative that they tell us themselves about the story. Um, I do that sometimes when somebody is more kinesthetic and isn't interested in going or isn't skillful around going to their thoughts or their emotions. And I just do it very quietly. In my practice, I would be inclined to say, my spirit is talking to your spirit.
Hmm.
So we do it more massage modality, or it's more craniosacral, or more massage modality, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it yeah, so I also do sound baths with meditations, and a lot of it is hearing it over and over again,
Yeah.
hearing and going to that place where you forget the
Yeah.
story that you were telling yourself in order to open up space to tell yourself a new story. But
Yeah.
bottom line comes down to taking agency
Yeah.
and deciding to rewrite that narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a interesting experience. So there's a guy I've done some body work with, and he's similar to you. He's a body healer, but it's Reiki, and he also does a lot of work with the chakras and stuff. And I went into this really open-minded, but also kind of not knowing at all what I was getting into. And he like talks to my body like while and like he says, your body is talking back to me like energetically, and he was touching my foot, and it's fully clothed too. He was touching my foot, and I don't know what came over me, but all of a sudden I was like mentally transported. And this sounds so woo-woo, but like even to me, I'm pretty woo-woo, but I'm also really science-based. So I'm always trying to like understand like what the fuck happened there. But like he literally transported me back to my backyard. I was like 6 or 7 years old, and it was a birthday party of mine. And I don't remember this birthday party, but I've been told that my mom had a panic attack and that she regularly had panic attacks on my birthdays, and she ended up in the hospital, like a really serious, like bad panic attack. My mom suffered from anxiety and depression my whole life. I was really unaware of it until I became like an adult, and I could like identify like, oh, that's what that is. I didn't know because it was just that was my mom. Um, and so I was transplanted. Like I was literally like, I could feel the grass on my feet. I had a zip line in my backyard, and I could feel myself flying on the zip line and like settling down. And then all of a sudden, just tears started coming out. And I'm not a big crier. I'm not like a super overtly emotional person. I just start crying. And all of a sudden, he's going, 1987, 1988, 1987. And he is talking to my foot. He had no idea that I was thinking about this. And he goes, when were you born? And I go, 1981. He's like, I'm hearing 1987, 1988. So he was literally could tell I was 6 or 7 years old in that energetic moment. It was the craziest experience. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. So what did
You
you
would
do?
think.
What did you
You
do? How did that happen? Like,
I know, right? Well, okay, so I have been labeled woo-woo, especially as old as my practice is, like because these things are so much more currently becoming available. Information is more currently becoming available. But again, in ancient healing techniques, these are all the ways. So, and I'll speak to part of my eclecticism again, like breathwork, qigong, Reiki. These are all things that were taught in massage school, but then also they were reaffirmed or taught differently or more a lot more. I don't know how to say that, but they were all taught when I did my mentorship with the medicine man. That more profoundly actually with the medicine man. So yeah, so I'm I'm like smiling with delight over here. First that you had something as cool in your backyard as zip
Well,
line.
yeah.
Envy, envy. Um, how does it happen? Because the body's recording everything. I mean, that is the one thing that we've been hearing for a couple few decades. The body keeps the score. The body is recording everything. And so again, this is how there's no perfect parent. You are the perfect parent. Your kids came to you, you're the perfect parent. And no child leaves the nest unscathed because we're assigning these things. So your mom went to the hospital. She always had this reoccurring thing, annually reoccurring event. And the little girl in you, the spirit in you is feeling that. So, and then your eyes and this humanness, you're witnessing that and you start to assign these things to your body.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I do in one of the workshops that I have is the weight that women carry. So specifically for women, it's physical, it's energetic, it's emotional, the story. One of the first things that we do is body mapping. Well, I, it's recently been brought to my attention that body map is something slightly different than when I learned to do it 20 whatever years ago in massage school. But basically, we're working we're just applying touch to a place of the body, and the person who's having the hands applied is rambling off all of the things that are coming out from
Mhm.
underneath that space. And it's a recorder. It's
Yeah.
completely recording everything and not always cognizant. Most of it is not. So
And are these thoughts and memories and, it's subconscious, right? But are they tied to certain parts of the body? Because he was working on my foot, and I was like, I actually had a pain. I have plantar fasciitis, and I was like, somehow that memory was tied up in the pain in my foot. Like I'm too literal. Like I really want to like know like why was it my foot, you know?
So that is, I will give you an answer and it will be a blanket answer. And when somebody is on my table and I have more of the variables, I can put it together. And most time clients are like, oh my gosh, that's the thing.
Mhm.
Without having all it, like, I don't know exactly, but short of the long, yes, your body, there are places in your body that more often than not, a certain thing or a certain group of things will get assigned. So in the feet, it would very much be around like I don't stand firmly in myself and or in my life, in my finances, in my parenting, in a specific facet of life, and I'm scared to, so I walk tenderly, I walk over eggshells, I don't want to hurt, I don't want to offend, I don't want to
Oh,
cause pain.
wow.
That's resonating?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So what and some of them are seem more literal, some of them seem less literal
Yeah.
with the foot. And it's the foundation that you build your whole self on, right? We walk
Right.
right, we're on our feet, so we're on that pressure of us to live or navigate in these particular ways. But then exactly where on the foot might makes more sense and exactly which foot, left or right.
Mm.
There's a lot of assignments for the bodies. Just to give an example, like I said, the liver is your anger, sorrow would be your lungs. So you see a lot of people smoking, satiating their need for, or smoking and drinking because you don't want to feel your sorrow. That just pisses you off. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to, yeah, yeah. Front would be future, back is past, left is feminine, right is masculine. So there's a lot of assignments, all the way down to the organs and yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Very interesting. I'm so curious, because I do so much, and I know a lot of my listeners are so health oriented, and so, they'll try anything, right? We're trying we're overachieving types. Like we're all like working out, taking all the supplements, eating really clean, trying to be amazing parents and stuff. But like this angle of type of self-care I know a lot of people, and myself included, are kind of like, I don't necessarily want to go there. Nothing feels broken to the point where like I need to go and like mess with it. That's why I was so caught off guard when this happened to me. And yeah, my relationship with my mother is very interesting. And so I know there's more to unearth there. And I'm sure it informs like how I parent, obviously, and my connection to my kids and all those things. And so, but it scares me a little bit to like approach like a session, like I'm going to find something I don't want to find, and or feel something I don't want to feel.
Yeah, it's really interesting how we do. I mean, what is it? Who's Maya Angelou? You're going to do something until you don't do it anymore, something along those lines.
Mhm.
We're really so scared of what we don't know, and then when we know it, it's not that bad.
Right.
And I can see, like, I got my first set of Louise Hay affirmation cards when I was 11 years old. And I say my mom accidentally gave them to me. So I've
Yeah.
been on this trajectory I turned 50 in less than 2 weeks. So I've been on this trajectory for more of my life than not. So I can empathize, like, with what it looks like to be fully immersed in the dark, not wanting to come out. Things are painful. I have a lot of big T and little T traumas, not all self-induced in my past, in my life, in my story. Um, and I can say that it's really powerful to allow yourself to be in that ugly moment, allow
Yeah.
yourself to fall all the way apart into the dark, fall into the dark, allow yourself to hate what
Yeah.
it is like in there so much that you get to the place where you want to seek the light sooner than later. So if you never go into the dark, you stay on that periphery in gray. You're neither light nor dark. You're doing these things that are very
Right.
conflicting or creating dissonance internally and not even aware of it. I'm so positive all of the time, but that's not our human plight. These things,
Yeah.
they don't work.
I,
Even
I
oil and water, when emulsified, will work. Like,
yeah.
these things just don't work. So it's it, it's definitely scary. The unknown is
Yeah.
always scary, and what could be there is.
Yeah, I tell my clients that too because they are so used to perpetually numbing that, and they don't even know they're numbing, right? They're calling it fun. They're calling it socializing. They're calling it celebrating. They don't realize that they're not allowing themselves to feel. And so when they quit, they're going to feel a lot. You feel really raw, and it's equal parts good and bad. But I keep telling them, like, you need that yin and yang. You need the contrast so that you know when you are feeling really, really good. The lengths you can go in both directions become greater. Because when you're drinking alcohol, not only is it numbing the bad, it's numbing the good.
Yeah.
And it just kind of flatlines everything. Like you said, it's that gray area. And um, so yeah, you are going to feel, and it's going to be heavy, and it's going to be raw, but you're also going to have this capacity for so much more joy and experience and pleasure in all these other areas. And it's a game changer.
Yeah, it definitely is. I can say at this point in my life that I didn't think it could get this good, and then it got better, and then couldn't get better than that, and it got better, and it got better, and it got better in every facet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the alcohol-free path. And what's so crazy is people have so much fear that it's going to suck, that they're going to be judged, that it's going to be difficult. And it ends up being is just amazing, you
Yeah,
know?
so there again, right? It is going to suck temporarily, but it's not going to suck long term because you're not doing anything to sate
Yeah.
those things. So you're on the fast track to the light, the bright, the joy, all the good things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So same with the others. Like, you will
Yeah.
be judged, but that's going to reveal who your people are, and who are your top five, and who are you top fiving for. Like, who are the people you're surrounding yourselves with. So
Yeah. Well, and I would also encourage people in those kind of early stages of sobriety to go and see someone like you, or to go find a place like Wellspring, because your intuition is coming back online, and this self exploration it becomes exciting. And that can be that dopamine reward that your brain is craving instead of a drink of alcohol. You're like, I'm bored. This is what I used to do for fun. What do I do for fun now? And it's like, find community in a new environment that isn't about drinking a neurotoxin. And again, yeah, it can feel awkward because you're like, no, I don't want to go sit at a bar for 3 hours. That sounds really boring. But going to a meditation class on a Sunday morning, that's exciting. And
True.
life will change, but it doesn't mean it's boring. It actually is so expansive. And I encourage you to lean into that self-exploration and get to know yourself better and, try some body work. Like I'm definitely going to book something and my kids. I kind of want you to do my whole family and see what there's some there's some sort of common energetic thread. And don't get me wrong, my family is like, we're a pretty happy crew. There's a lot of love, but there's also just a lot of growth that needs to happen. And I'm like you said, I need to apologize. Excuse me, a little frog in my throat to my son. And I apologize a lot, being like, Mom did not get this right this time. Like I
I
definitely,
love that.
and being sober is a huge aspect of being able to do that because I'm so clear and I'm so able to kind of see meditation helps me do this now, is to observe myself and be like, "Woo, that wasn't so pretty. So let's start over. Let's try this again." And that's why kids are so great to have, is just because you learn so much about yourself, and we are human and we're
Mhm.
gonna fuck up.
So monumentally, but then when you rise out of that, it is monumentally greater. And I'll say one last thing. I think you're trying to wrap it up, and I'll say this. My dad was a high functioning alcoholic when I was younger, and there was an incident, and he went sober one night. So
Wow.
one night he didn't. Yeah. So my mom called him out on it, and that was it. It was done. He stopped drinking that night. Um, and my
Called
dad has a lot of
spontaneous
concern.
sobriety. They call
Yeah,
that spontaneous sobriety. Yeah.
yes, very. And my dad always had, well, until a little while ago when we finally leveled it out. But my dad thought, Farah, you only remember the bad things about the past. And as I age and as I rewrite that narrative, as I close those chapters differently and really put them to rest,
Hmm.
I don't remember them. And I definitely don't remember the bad. Like
Yeah.
those are so muted compared to the stack of wonderful things that we have that we're woven in between, the drinking, life as well. But those light things, they are so bright. I really don't recall. Sometimes somebody has to say, "Do you remember how bad it was?" Like
Yeah.
it's just not in my, yeah.
Because we're meant to persevere. We're meant to survive. Yeah.
We're meant to thrive. Yeah.
Well, we're meant to record it somewhere in the body to be on Earth at some other point to make sense to us about like, oh, that's why. Um, yeah, that's another factor of my coaching. Is like sometimes you don't need to know why. You just need to know like it's there. Something's in there. Let's release it. We don't need to know like pinpoint exactly what it was and over explain it to ourselves, rationalize something. It's literally just like find the light, seek the light, keep moving in that direction, like moving forward, instead of always having to go back. Like, yes, we can heal things by moving forward, by allowing it to let go of it without having to like over examine and poke at it a whole bunch.
Wow.
Um, and
Why
people,
is considered a very arrogant question in Indian country. You never sitting with an elder and listening to them and ask them why.
Mhm.
It's not done. It's like a dog chasing its tail, but it's also considered very lacking in respect. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like you're saying, it doesn't matter. That
Yeah.
why is not going to fuel your rocket ship out of it. Why is going to keep you in it.
Yeah. And as the daughter of someone who has suffered from depression her whole life, I was very curious about understanding depression because I thought it was coming for me. I thought it was hereditary. I thought it was like at some point it was going to rear its head and take over. Like I had no choice. And alcohol was a big part of that for me because I kept feeling it creeping up. And once I removed alcohol, it's like, oh, I have a grip now. Like it's not coming for me. I am stable and I'm in control of this. Sure, I have bad days, but like I don't feel like it's going to overtake me and that I have no control in the matter. And for me, like ruminating and reliving the past and trying to pinpoint stories and exactness about things really is not, you're just running that loop.
Mhm.
And instead of being like, I want to run a new loop, I want to have new thoughts, new experiences, new emotions that free me and that expand me and help me grow instead of kind of like, and it's not to disacknowledge what happened to you.
Right.
It's just that how do we move beyond that in our brains, like to a new network, let's go over here, right?
Now, I love that you said network. You are literally creating new neural pathways when you are willing to rewrite your narrative
Right.
and make it fuel for it to be the fuel
Yeah.
behind the rock star that you are. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Farah, this has been the best conversation. I know we could talk for hours more, so maybe I'll have you on another time. But how can people find you? Because I know they're going to be really curious, like I was. Uh,
Okay, so right now, Instagram is probably the best. I do have, for the first time ever, have a website. It's under construction. Both of them are Singing Sparrow Collective. So it's at Singing Sparrow Collective, and then it's singingsparrowcollective.com. I think that the website right now has a phone number for me, so that's a fair and fine way to reach out to me as well. Um,
Isn't that cool, guys? She's been able to build an entire business just by referral. That's how good she is. You know you're good when you aren't on Instagram. You're not begging for anybody's business. It's people are just like, oh, you got to go see Farah. Like
you
that's
know, people suffer long enough, they'll realize that they want to be done with it. And yeah, exactly. I'm there when you're ready.
yeah. Yeah.
Very, yeah.
Thank you. This conversation has been so insightful, and I'm sure it sparked a lot of curiosity in people. So thank you, Farah, for your time today, and I will see you at Wellspring.
Thank you so much for having me. See you at Wellspring.
Bye. Hey, you've just listened to an episode of Find Myself Free. And if some part of this left you wanting more, if your curiosity has been piqued and your intuition is telling you, I'm ready for more, then check out my coaching offers at findmyselffree.com. I have the Brave course to help you break free from booze. And I designed this course with the exact lessons that led to my transformation. I also have the balance challenge for those ready to learn the art of cycle syncing to balance their hormones. If you're looking for additional support and to take either of these programs to the next level, I also offer one-on-one coaching. Now, I worked with a coach for 4 months at the start of my alcohol free journey, and it made all the difference. Being able to talk to someone who knew what I was going through and could help me navigate my new world gave me a foundation of support I could build on. And it's a big reason why I'm a coach today. I want to help others find their freedom and level up their health. If this sounds good to you, connect with me at findmyselffree.com and set up a call. Listen to your intuition that is telling you you were meant for more. I am with you. You got this.